and exclaimed, "It's my scraggy little Paul, the Englishman who was so afraid of Vienna, but who could play the violin like an angel. Welcome back, welcome." After that, there had been reminiscences, toasts, and news of people who were only names to Gisela. She was very content to listen and know that her father seemed to be in better health and happier than she had seen him since her mother had so sadly died. For more than 2 years, they had wandered from place to place, settling nowhere, and only when it seemed that their money was going to run out, because he had earned so little, did her father say, "We will go to Vienna then. It is where I have always meant to return, but your mother always preferred to go to France." It was Gisela's mother who had looked after everything these past years. Her husband might make the music of angels, but he had no idea that those who relied on him had to eat. He would play just for his wife and his daughter, an audience of 2, as contentedly and brilliantly as if he was playing in a packed theatre. Paul Ferraris had been acclaimed in Paris, and with his wife organising his engagements, he had made a good deal of money until the outbreak of the Franco-Prussian War, and when the Germans had marched in, those who could afford it had left as quickly as they possibly could. Quite soon afterwards, his wife had died very tragically after a sudden illness, and Paul Ferraris and Gisela spent a short time in the south of France. But there was very little money to be made there, and after they had moved through Italy to Greece, finally, Paul Ferraris had yearned for Austria, and especially for Vienna. Gisela, attempting to take her mother's place, asked him whom they should approach to arrange a concert for him or an engagement in one of the best theatres. "They will all know my name, there is no doubt about that," he said. "All we have to do is to contact my friends." When Gisela pressed him for their names, he was rather elusive. It worried her, but she was still sure that his name would have preceded him, and Johann Strauss, whose music was to be heard everywhere, would at least welcome him as a fellow artist. In the meantime, Frau Bubner remembered him, and Gisela was determined to talk to her alone when the opportunity arose. "You are doing well here," her father was saying. "Surely the place is a little larger than I remember." "Larger, mein Herr, it is double the size," Frau Bubner exclaimed. "We are fashionable. Everybody sooner or later comes to drink my wines and eat my schnitzels." "If they are as good as those we have had tonight," Paul Ferraris said, "then I am not surprised. Tomorrow I will cook you my Palatschinken." Paul Ferraris smiled with delight. "No one could cook them like you, mein Frau, and I have already told my daughter that nothing in the world could be more delicious." Gisela knew that Palatschinken consisted of thin dessert pancakes rolled in honey, fruits, and other succulent titbits. Not once, but a dozen times on the long journey, her father had described to her what they were like, and she had to admit that the schnitzels had lived up to her expectations, and so had the Apfelstrudel. "I will soon grow fat if we stay here for too long," Gisela commented. "You think you would grow fat like me?" Frau Bubner asked. "That is unlikely. I never could fatten your father, although I never knew a student who ate so much and was always so hungry." Her father was still very thin, Gisela thought, and it made him look most elegant in his evening clothes when he stood in the centre of the stage and lifted his precious Stradivarius violin and tucked it under his chin. She had often thought that perhaps the ladies in the audience were as thrilled by him as they were by his music, and certainly their eyes were all on his handsome face with his swept-back hair, which was just beginning to turn grey at the temples. "I am jealous of the attention you receive from such lovely ladies," her mother had said once. "There is no need, my darling," her father had replied. "The only lovely lady in my life is you." What was more, unlike most musicians, her father's whole happiness was concentrated in his home. He rarely went out to supper after a performance, which those who wanted to lionize him could not understand. Instead, he would drive back to wherever they were staying to have supper alone with his wife, and later, when she grew older, with his daughter Gisela. When her mother had died, Gisela knew that her